Hi everybody and welcome back to Bonkers B Movies. This week I'm going to be talking about the 1966 film Sting of Death, directed by William Grief. I got it from this box set. He came from The Swamp, which is a collection of his movies. He's an amateur American filmmaker. I think most of his films were in the 60s and 70s. I picked it up quite cheap from HMV, and I thought, why not do it for this week's video, since carrying on from the theme of last week's, where the Batwoman, she's in the sea, she's fighting the sea monsters, fishmen, that sort of thing. I thought, why not go with a half-man, half-jellyfish movie? So, the film is set in the Florida Everglades. It's set in an island in amongst the Florida Everglades swamps, and it focuses on a woman who is visiting her father who works on the island. He's a some sort of scientist, and she goes to the island with her friends to have a good summer. And they get some uni students over, they're all partying, but wouldn't you know it, there's a half-man, half-jellyfish running amok. And he's been killing fishermen, and it basically becomes, before I guess slashers were a thing with like Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like a proto-slasher. So it's essentially just, half man, half jellyfish running about for a while. And that's basically what it is to the plot. It's incredibly simple. It's only an hour and 20 minutes long. And it does really try and get to that length. There's several shots and scenes that go on way too long. I'll get to this a bit later, but it's crazy how much dancing there is in this movie, like to an annoying degree. So, I guess one of the problems as well with this plot, like most movies, is that I'll be talking about really with Bonkers B Movies, is that the characters are just so thinly drawn. So we've got Karen, who is the daughter of the doctor. She instantly falls in love with the doctor's assistant, John. There's like no character development there, they're just next thing they're in love. I don't really know why, because he's quite annoying in the movie, but I guess they had to have the sort of damsel in distress role, and that's what she gets. You have the doctor himself, who disturbingly wears the shortest shorts I think I've ever seen in a movie, and every time you see him, he's just cutting about in these wee short shorts. I don't know why they thought, oh, that'll make him look cool and not kind of weird and creepy, hanging about, these dancing students in these short shorts, watching them and talking about how, oh, I won't dance. It's a long time since ska was a thing. Like, the dialogue, the choices behind his character are just weird. He also shows up with a giant bump in his head, and says, oh, a bit of equipment fell on me, but it doesn't look like a bump. It looks like he's got a giant like black circle on his head. It doesn't look realistic at all. Later on, somehow the bump is went down and looks like an actual bump, but I wonder if it's maybe that the film was obviously so amateur and cheaply made that they just do like a giant black dot in his head, and they were like, we can't reshoot it, so that's all he's got. Then you've got the assistant that I've mentioned, John, who seems to be quite good at free diving, and that's about all I know. Really, there's no character to him, and that's the problem with him and Karen, and them having a romance, is that they're probably the two characters in the movie that have the least development. And then moving on to probably the two most important characters, you've got Egon, who is like the creepiest assistant you could ever see. It goes to that trope of he's got a eye shut permanently, and so he sees himself as like ugly and horrible, and Karen's friends all sort of laugh at him. And there's like a really odd sequence where all these uni students come and they're all dancing, and it just keeps cutting back to Egon, who, as it looks like he's in some sort of robe or fancy jacket, and he's just sort of laughing and smiling. And then the students spot him and they chase him and say like there's a spy in our midst, and he runs away on an airboat. It's like a weird, he also keeps appearing behind Karen silently and just like trying to put his arm on her. He keeps going right up to her face. And I was thinking to myself, This is like the creepiest character in the film, and this is a film with half man, half jellyfish. Like the weirdest choice. Then we get to the half man, half jellyfish, who you barely see. You see like a bit of an arm. You see flippers, and I was like, why would a half man, half jellyfish have flippers? Would it need like why would it need flippers? Um, and you don't really see much of it, but you can sort of just see a hand, a tiny bit of a leg. Like they're really sparse with using it, and I thought it's obviously a budgetary thing, or that the costume's absolutely terrible, which it is. But obviously with these videos, I'm going to go a bit more in depth. So if you don't want to hear a little bit more spoiler into the film, turn away now. But essentially, the big reveal is that the jellyfish man is Egon. Because I was thinking at one point, you can see at one point that the trouser and the flipper, there's a gap and you can see skin. So I was like, have they really just like not put any effort into making this look like an actual threat? It's clearly just a bloke in a suit. Even when you see sequences where he's like swimming, it just looks like a bloke in a suit, and I was like, that's so ridiculous. Um, then of course me thinking, oh, Egon's creepier than the jellyfish man, and wouldn't you know it, they then have a sequence where he attacks and jellyfish man goes back to his lair. You're starting to see more of him, and he pops off a giant jellyfish head, because of course he does, and it's Egon. So I actually kind of like that. Like, it's quite a fun subversion that you think it's just going to be like a terrible guy in a suit, and it is, but that's because it is a terrible guy in a suit. So it's like it's a smart way of doing that, I guess, on quite a low budget. Um, but then it also gets to sort of the weird thing with this movie. Is the focus on women, which always seems to come with Bonkers B movies. Um, which is, you know, it starts with a woman in a bikini lying down, jellyfish man's creeping about, cuts back to her, then his hands grabs her, pulls her in the water. The whole title sequence is him literally just dragging her about in the water, which was kind of weird. Um, and again, there's like a really long couple of dance sequences with just uni students dancing, and there's way too many close-ups on the backs of women, weird angles, and it's constantly showing you that look, the women are enjoying it, because it keeps cutting to this one woman's face laughing and smiling like every, I don't know, 20 seconds in this like what felt like a 5 minute dance sequence. And obviously it then becomes clear that the reason all the women are being killed, well, there's men being killed as well, but the focus is on the women because Egon thinks women don't find him attractive, they find him ugly, so he's going to get revenge, which leads to actually quite a cool. So there's a lot of obviously slasher sequences, especially once Egon's revealed. You get a lot more sequences of him going in for the kill, and you get one such sequence which is essentially just a rip-off of Psycho, which is a woman going in the shower and then the jellyfish man comes. But it was kind of cool to see, I guess, these films ripping off films of the time. Just way worse, to be fair. Also, like, you find out that he's a jellyfish man, and then you're just waiting for other people to figure it out, because the guy who just keeps appearing behind folk trying to touch them is probably like not one to be trusted, is he? He also lives out in the swamp, and he's been talking for ages about how he believes you can create a giant man of war killer jellyfish, and nobody believes him. Um, but I think as well, a lot of the problem with this film is like even the kill sequences are just quite boring, which is a shame. And talking of boring, I should probably get a bit more into detail on the actual costume of the jellyfish man, which is essentially, and I'll put it up on screen, but it's essentially just sort of like a suit with some stingers, and it's got a big purple bag on its head for a jellyfish. Which I don't know why they did that. It looks like someone's just painted an IKEA bag purple and stuck it on his head. But Yeah, it's not a great design, is it? And obviously that's partly they get away with it, I guess, from a story standpoint that it's a man wearing a suit. But I mean, you could have done way better, especially when you're building up the hype and you're showing little bits here and there. The full reveal is just terrible, um, and it doesn't really add anything to the movie other than a guy in a bag walking about. But you also have, and talking about in sequences earlier, it all leads to this big chase sequence where they're chasing him on an airboat. Of course, Karen falls unconscious when he reveals that he loves Karen. They've been doing it all for her. So then he grabs her, and the classic lifting an unconscious woman as a monster and walking about, puts her in the airboat, and there's a chase with John and the dad slash doctor on one airboat chasing him and the unconscious Karen. The chase goes on for what feels like an infinite amount of time. It's so boring. They could have maybe, I don't know, put a tree in the way, put some obstacles. It just looks really boring. And then eventually you get to the cavern sequence where basically Egon reveals to Karen everything that's been going on, that he managed to grow a giant man of war jellyfish and he's kept it in captivity in this cavern. Um, and then the weirdest thing is you realise he's not been wearing like a fake jellyfish head or whatever. He's been wearing the giant jellyfish. Um, and then it shows him sort of getting high on its toxins. I'm really confused at this point because is he just a man dressing up as a jellyfish? Or is he somehow it seems like he's bonded to the jellyfish, but how's he not dead? Because it's a killer jellyfish. And he's putting it on its head and he's wearing it about. How's he not died immediately? He's got stingers in his costume. How did the stingers not go through his costume and sting him? How is he not scarred from all the jellyfish stinging? Um, there's also a sequence sort of midway through the movie where the students are attacked by jellyfish. So is he psychically bonded with all jellyfish, just the one jellyfish? Is he not psychically bonded? It makes absolutely zero sense. And I just thought, once the reveal happens of Egon's the jellyfish man, oh, it's just a jellyfish man, and it was a coincidence that these jellyfish all attacked. And they were going to have some reason at the end, or they had this on their boat that attracts jellyfish. It was just a coincidence. But not as somehow a guy who wears a jellyfish for a head, takes in its toxins, and psychically speaks to them, I guess. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And also at the end, after he's revealed his love for Karen, wants to kill her, killed all these people for her, and he gets injured, and John's helping Karen out, and Karen wants to save him because no one understood and all this, and it's why are you trying to make a hero out the guy who has walked about as a jellyfish man with a giant jellyfish in his head, killing women for the past hour and 20 minutes? He's not a good guy. I don't know why they try and suddenly make it that, just he had one eye closed and people made fun of him. So it's all right to kill a bunch of men and women pretty brutally. I mean, the makeup effects for when they get attacked and the stings all over their faces is pretty grim. And yet, no, he should be redeemed apparently. And of course, they escape, but he couldn't make it. So the cavern blows up, and they're probably a bit sad because the jellyfish man died. And that's the end of the movie. So yeah, essentially, would I recommend this film? Probably not. I would give it like 2 out of 5 stars. I mean, honestly, it's not even really fun. Um, it's competently made, but the story's nonsense. The reveal of Egon as a jellyfish man I actually thought was quite a smart way of dealing with the budget, but then at the end it just completely throws all that out and makes no sense. The idea of setting a film on like an island in the Florida Everglades, the swamps, the suspense of you can't get help is really smart. I feel like someone could do something really cool with that now with a good budget and like actual ideas. I guess in the sense of it was just made on the cheap in the 60s, it's a fun watch. But I can't say I would recommend it because the end of it just left me scratching my head a bit annoyed. And it's quite boring. So, oh well, but that's what these films are like at this point. I think some of these films where they're just made on the cheap and they're obviously making it up on the day and they can't reshoot. Um, but hey ho, let me know if there's any Bonkers B movies you would like me to watch and review on here, and I'll see you next week for the next Bonkers B movie. Cheerio!